past few weeks we've had some requests from some of the guys in the fishing club about cooking prawns and the right way to do it and the wrong way to do it. And I thought, seeing that we had such a good prawn season, a lot of guys will have some prawns in the freezer that they want to cook up a little bit later on down the track. So what we're going to do today is give you a demonstration about how you thaw these prawns out properly and so that they peel best. A lot of people are under the misconception that they dip them in a lot of salt water and let them soak there for a while to thaw them out. You can do that, but the quality of the prawn diminishes quite a bit. The best way to do it is to spray them, which we'll give you a demonstration on, show you how to make a proper brine and show you how to cook them properly so that they're not raw or overcooked, and yeah, they'll come out tasting just as good as the day that you caught them, I suppose. What we generally do is I've got a scoop here, and just so you guys know, that's a kilo of salt, which is your small Chinese containers that you can buy at any of your supermarkets, or you can buy a scoop like that. They're pretty cheap as well. So into the brine, I like to put about 1.5 kilos of salt into the brine, and while I'm at it, I put 2 kilos of salt into the cooker. The other thing is that the salt that we use is a really coarse sea salt. There's no point using your iodized or your Saxa salt shakers. They're not going to do the job for you. Salt's pretty cheap. Get down to the supermarket and buy yourself a big bag of salt. It'll get you a lot better results. So not everybody's got baskets made up like this, but any sort of colander or any sort of draining device that you can get, just sit it in there like that, and then you use a spray nozzle on your hose. And they'll take about 3 or 4 minutes to thaw out. As you can see, the prawn's being frozen. The water that's coming off them is starting to make your ice brine. And that's a really important part of the process, is the ice brine. You want to cook the prawns really quickly, and you want to cool them really quickly. Right, what we're doing here is we've put our salt in. We're just going to fill the cooker up to a certain level. And generally in a pot this size we'll use about 25 litres of water to your 1.5 kilos of salt. Another thing that's fairly important to remember is that we're cooking them in salt water, but the real salt taste for the prawn comes into the brine. They actually soak up the brine, and that's where they get their salty taste from. Okay, we're just about to get this gas burner going. As you can see, we've got a pressure gauge here. It's not one of those regulator type ones that are on the barbecue. You can actually adjust the pressure to whatever you need. That's fairly important to get a fairly decent flame up the back end of the cooker here, because one of those little gas rings is going to take you forever to get this water boiling, and it won't get it boiling hard enough to cook prawns properly. So we'll switch this on and get it going, give you a bit of a look at what sort of heat you need to get into these pots to get them working properly. And just remember that you can always cook crabs and that in this situation too. You just throttle the flame back a little bit. You don't have to have it flat out like you do for prawns. So you can see we've got the burner going now, and we're running at about 100 psi. That's less important than the sound and the noise and the flame that's coming out of the cooker. All gauges are slightly different, so don't hang your hat on the 100 psi. I'd be suggesting that you look more at the blue flame coming out and how hard it's hitting the bottom of the pot. That's the important part. You probably can't see it on the camera, but just down the bottom the water's starting to bubble up, so we're looking at it maybe another couple of minutes and we'll have this thing roaring and ready to go. Okay, so next step is pretty simple. Grab the basket of prawns and drop them in. That's how you really want your water, bubbling up as hard as you can possibly get it going. When we drop these in, no matter how big or how hard the cooker is, it'll come off the boil. The trick is you've got to get it back on the boil as quickly as possible, so we'll drop them in and see how we go. Step that I'm looking for is when these prawns float to the surface. Generally when they float to the surface they're getting pretty close to being done. I like to give them about another 60 seconds after they float to the surface. By that time they should be swirling back over in the boiling pot. Another good thing to look for is when you lift the basket out, just have a look and see if the meat's separated away from the shell just slightly. You'll see a fine little gap between the shell and the meat itself. You can just about guarantee that when they're like that, they're done. You don't want a real big wide gap. It means that they're overcooked. They'll become hard and rubbery. So the other thing that's really important when we cook prawns is that you should grate them. Make sure that you put all very similar sized prawns in. So we had some small prawns in with these guys. They'd be cooked long before the big ones are cooked. So you'll have a heap of small ones in there that are like bricks, and the big ones will normally come out undercooked. So spend a bit of time and grate your prawns. Make sure that they're all about the same size. Anyway, you can see now, probably hard to see on the camera, but you can see that there's a bit of separation on the shell for the meat, so we'll call them done. Leave them in there for 15-20 minutes, try one. The longer you leave them in, the saltier they get. It's like pretty much any other crustacean. The longer it stays in the brine, the saltier it'll get. And once they're out of that, pull them out of there, drain them off, and just set them in some ice, just some plain ice. Make sure you cover the prawns with ice. Much better to sit prawns in ice than in refrigeration, because refrigeration will dry them out. Anyway, that's us, we're done. We're about ready to have a beer and eat some prawns. Cheers. I think one of the single most important things when you're going to be cooking seafood for your family or your friends is that you clean up after yourself, and it's fairly important. If you have a look inside this cooker, this is all the scum that comes off the prawns. It's just a simple matter of getting it wet, because that scum gets a little bit hard to get off, and then give it a good scrub. I think the most important thing to do is probably to do this while it's still all fresh. Go and buy yourself one of those decent scourers from the hardware. Don't worry about stealing the one off the missus in the kitchen. They'll last you a couple of minutes if you're lucky. You want something pretty heavy duty to do all of this. Now once we've got rid of that, the next step is that you need to use a chlorine on there that actually kills any of the bacteria that might be sitting in there. It's important to do the pot as well as the basket that you cooked in. Righto, we've got our solution here, which is basically 50% chlorine, 50% water, and you can buy the chlorine from any of the pool shops or Kmart or any of those places. I buy it in a 5 or 10 litre drum, and you just put 50% of it, add 50% water into a good quality squirter bottle. We'll give it a bit of a squirt, let it sit there for a while. Same on the basket, give the basket a squirt, and just let it sit there in that solution for probably 5 or 10 minutes, and then give it a good rinse out and leave it upside down so all the water drains out. Pack her away and she'll be ready for next time. You won't have any problems with it. I guess the next thing that we need to do is have a look at the proof of the pudding. Nice crusty shell on them, they peel really nicely. Absolutely perfect. Just got enough salt in them now. They've been in there about half an hour. That's for my liking. You might like them a bit saltier. If you do, just leave them in a bit longer, but for me they're perfect. Alright guys, hope you learned something there today. Hopefully this information you can put into use. I'm Pedro from Australian Oceanic Seafoods. I'm also a member of Nuggets Fishing Club, and if there's anything here that you don't quite understand, feel free to send me a PM and I'll get back to you and give you the best advice I can. And hopefully you'll enjoy these beautiful prawns that we've been catching for the last couple of months. Cheers.